Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. So much reaction to the tier 2 drama of the last couple of days. Loads of different players are wading into this one on the salaries that we've seen over the last couple of years. Who exactly is at fault for the tier 2 situation here in North American VALORANT, especially being in the state that it is. Also, big teaser as to 100 Thieves' 5th player as well, and it might not necessarily be who we think it's going to be. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, I thought this is pretty funny from, Chetmas here that NRG come out with. Most people, to be fair, asking for him to just release the roster. You know what I mean? I guess at this point it's going to happen after Christmas, before the new year, after the new year. Who even knows? Maybe who even cares at this point? Because we're pretty sure what NRG are cooking up behind the scenes, as with these other guys as well. But, unfortunately, on the other side of this, you had this from Aspas yesterday when he returned from a boot camp in Madrid. And upon arriving in Brazil, his bags were opened, locks were changed, personal items were stolen. So I don't exactly know how this occurred, because, he talks to Iberia, right? So the airline involved, the company responsible for the travel and baggage and luggage. No one provided support or service, had to get the police involved. But, so he's got to look for new gifts and stuff. So really unfortunate stuff. Really sad for Aspas here. And sure, material items and stuff, they can be replaced, but especially when you've bought Christmas presents for people, like over in Madrid or whatever, and then they come back and they're all gone. It's just, really sad stuff. So hopefully that situation can be resolved for Aspas in some way or another. I also wanted to mention for you guys, you probably remember a while ago when Boaster said from Fnatic that he was looking into having an aim coach, effectively. Someone to help him aim straighter, because I think he realized that, sure, if he gets 1% better at aiming and he can get one more kill per map as a result, that makes Fnatic even stronger. Because right now, if you look at the stats of Fnatic, it's Leo, it's Chronicle, it's Derke, it's Alpha, and then, Boaster's way behind. And that's fine, that's okay. But some teams, that's not the setup. Like, you look at Sentinels, sure, maybe their top firepower isn't as, doesn't have as much firepower as Fnatic do. But John QT is a serious, fragging in-game leader. Like, he's great IGL, but also he has great series in his own right. And Fnatic don't necessarily, Boaster's never going to top frag, you know what I mean? And that's fine, and he doesn't necessarily need to. But having a few extra kills in his arsenal is never a bad idea. So he came out and said that he was looking into an aim coach and trying to get somebody to help him out to take it to the next level in terms of his raw aim. But it's interesting. I wonder how that's going, because we haven't really seen an update on that. And Derke actually says that, because I wondered, right, why don't Boaster just ask his teammates? You know what I mean? Just ask his team, ask his team, mates and his coaching staff to figure that out for him, or find someone to help him, rather than him go public on Twitter to say that he wants to partner up with one of these aim demons to help him aim better. Because Derke says that, he prefers just playing in the game. The aim trainers, he reckons, make players some players think they play worse using the aim trainers, like aim labs or stuff like this. He doesn't really know whether that's just, bad habits or whatever might be creeping in when you do this type of stuff. But he reckons his preference is just playing in the game, just putting more time in, and, aim training feels like you push a little bit more forward with it and might help with discipline and habits. You can do both, he says. But he reckons that for some pros, worth a try, but it's not necessarily for him. So, maybe that's why Boaster wanted a different point of view to what his teammates have, but I wonder how that's getting on, because, Fnatic are going to be a scary force regardless next season, but if Boaster can get 1 or 2 more frags per map, that's going to be a big deal. But, maybe Derke disagrees with exactly the way that some players go about this. So we've got to talk about tier 2. For example, Alexander, who's been a prominent player for the last couple of seasons, really, he's going to do what I think is an intelligent thing. And I think a lot of pros should consider this angle, a lot of players should consider this angle, is the collegiate side. Of all the tier 2 situations in esports, the collegiate programs are probably the best of many. I mean, even in the Call of Duty world, there were former world champions in the game that were going to play in the collegiate side, because they could get a scholarship to do so and get a degree at the same time. It's kind of a no-brainer. And obviously there was debates as to whether they should be taking up collegiate spots and people who are really collegiate players. But, that's of course another debate entirely. But in terms of stability of the tier 2 ecosystem, the collegiate esports programs are like, they are a real force to be reckoned with. And Alexander here, for example, is, you know, in the same boat here with Maryville Esports. That's really cool stuff. Now, elsewhere in the world, we don't really know what's going to happen here, right? The North American challenger scene is in a bit of a mess. We talked about it yesterday, and we'll see more evidence of it in a second. The future of the, you know, tier 2 situation in China, I guess we'll see. There's plenty of teams, of course, in the Ascension tournament that's coming up in, well, it's tomorrow, isn't it? It begins on the 23rd of December. The run through to the 30th to determine who the 11th team is going to be in next year's VCT China. In EMEA as well, it seems somewhat different. I think that, you know, really the Pacific, China, EMEA, probably slightly better placed from the Challengers Tier 2 support ecosystem side than the other regions. I think mainly because the salaries in those regions are lower. There aren't the crazy NA salaries that you get for some of these partnership teams, and especially the tier 2 teams in challenges that some of these orgs are paying. So it means that it's a bit more stable probably, and also you've got massive situations like this with Barcelona are getting into Valorant, and they're putting together a team next season in kind of like the rising Spain challenges. So that's pretty wild, but that was confirmed yesterday that they're looking into executing exactly that. So we see quite a lot of this stuff go around. There's also unfortunate stuff in certain regions, though. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, absolutely, over in some of these regions, because Valorant, so the Valorant account of India and South Asia, so the official account actually comes out and basically says that for Pakistani players, they are recommending and encouraging them to compete in the Middle East and Africa Challengers League as an import. I don't exactly know what all the background to this is, but there's various logistical obstacles for Pakistani players even competing in the South Asia Challengers League. So the official, you know, Riot account is saying that they're recommending just go to MENA and import to that region, which is way more complicated, and hopefully they can find a resolution to this situation, because, yeah, I'm sure it's massively frustrating for those guys. But in certain countries, for various reasons, especially just with how global and international Valorant is, I think these problems are almost inevitable. And it's just difficult to resolve everything in every single region, right? And it's probably one of the reasons why Valorant and Riot are probably quite happy with the idea that in 2027, there will be 14 teams in each partnership league. That will be 56 teams across the Americas, Europe, Pacific, and China. And I guess they think, maybe understandably, that 56 teams across 4 regions internationally supported in the partnership league, that's enough for a thriving competitive ecosystem, which in some ways maybe it kind of is, but you know, tier 2 isn't going to get the support that maybe it needs if that is their opinion. Now, Thryfo actually confirms here, of course he was around for quite a while, that he's decided to effectively retire from competing in Valorant a while ago. Never made that official though, but says that he's open to analyst and coaching opportunities. So yeah, wishing the best for Thryfo going forwards. Maybe if he announced this earlier, he might have had a chance to get analyst and coaching roles that are now filled, I suppose. But I guess it's difficult to say either way. But we've got to talk about some of the reaction to the tier 2 drama of the last couple of days. So FNS is like, all right, you know, what's going on? Seeing all this drama go down. We saw, for example, Dapper made some thoughts on this, that the tier 2 scene is dying, really. I mean, it all kicked off when Ori Sports decided to pull out, and there was lots of reaction to it. Now, Bodork basically comes out with an interesting, reply, and kind of, look, I don't think he necessarily meant it exactly as it sounded, but I mean, especially this tweet. NA is a prime example of a region which puts themselves in this situation, mostly thanks to organizations, but also players as well. I live in LA, so I need a higher salary, thought about moving out of LA, etc, etc. And Dapper basically says, you've got no idea what you're talking about, mate, because a lot of these guys aren't even based in LA anyway, and it's not true that the players are at fault. No, sure, of course, the players are never going to say they're at fault, and I think in large part they're not. It is mainly on the organizations, and I think that in general, the NA organizations, especially because, as I mentioned yesterday, the zero interest rate venture capital phenomena of the last couple of years massively overinflated what these salaries should look like. And to be fair, it was happening in other esports even pre-franchising, right? Like even pre-2020, 2021, when everything was absolutely free, right? There was so much money flying around all over the place. Even back in 2018, 2019, the salaries were starting to go pretty crazy, especially in North America. I know that many of players have said that, like the Fnatic guys in Europe, they're not making, their money they make would probably not even be that comparable to some of the like average teams in North America, despite how well they are doing internationally. And even the tier 2 teams in challenges can be making you know, I don't know what they're on in challenges, but they could be on like 5-6 grand a month probably just to play in challenges, which is pretty, you know, some people think that's pretty insane, and I totally get it, and I think that it kind of is too much that can realistically be sustainable here, to be honest. So this is why there was then, you know, some more follow-ups, and Trick says that, you know, Bo's completely clueless on this one. Nobody lives in LA outside of franchising anyway. Player salaries are not why this is happening. Riot have said themselves they don't want stability. I think there's only so much Riot can do at the end of the day. Like, I think fundamentally it's on these organizations behaving in a certain way, offering salaries they can't afford, not actually making, you know, they're not good businesses, these organizations, a lot of the time. They don't make that much sense. Their content isn't any good, they can't bring in the sponsors they need, and as soon as the VC money dries up, things are going downhill. I think fundamentally the problem is on the organizations. I don't blame the players for taking the money that's offered. You know what I mean? Like, if the orgs are going to offer them this money because that's what the market rate, going rate seems to be, you know, the players would be stupid not to take that money. So as ShahZaM says, the orgs offered those salaries. What were the players supposed to do? Say, oh no, sorry, that's too much. I need to make sure you guys can afford it. And maybe you can argue the players could have been more responsible in the salary demands they were asking for. But you know, I can't say the players shouldn't have taken the money that they were offered, right? So, you know, the orgs could afford to do it. At the time, they could afford to do it. They couldn't afford to do it in the long run, and I think that people realised that even at the time. And as Ethan says now, and Ethan has clearly realised this for some time as well, it only took esports orgs 6 years to realise teenagers probably shouldn't make more than neurosurgeons, right? Because some of these crazy salaries that these guys are getting offered and paid in the top end of esports. Now, to be honest, the amount of money they get paid is going to be relative to the amount of value that they generate. And if they're a very important asset to the organization, as sports players are, then sure, they can earn an awful lot of money. You know, teenagers in sports earn big cash if the interest is there and if the business model makes sense, if money is actually flowing in the correct directions rather than just massive lending, which was never going to be sustainable in the long run with the current, you know, difficulties of these organizations monetizing in esports, generally because lots of these organizations just aren't very good at monetizing and don't have particularly good leadership. And as Ethan says in the replies, or actually Seth Fowler, right, who used to work with NRG on their content stuff, said, you know, good job you guys got the GTRs, the Nissan GTRs, right, and got paid big time before they realized. Like, you know, I don't blame the players, but it does mean that people are in a difficult spot. And look, as T-Dog says, I get his point of view as well, that people are obviously crying about this and saying, oh, you know, it's such a shame the way things are going, and I totally get that. But T-Dog's like, look, it's not meant to be easy, right? If you're a tier 2 challengers player, you're trying to make it into the pro league. It's not meant to be easy, you know, grind, you know, work harder, get better, right? And prove to be undeniable, get your head down, get to work. And, you know, there's still money there for the top players, but it's just difficult to be a top player, right? So before we finish out, we've got to mention 100 Thieves because they confirmed, or at least they did some sort of teaser as to their new roster for next season. Asuna, EU, Bang, Cryo. And, well, I just paused it here because if you guys can see, as they tease their final player, it's like, okay, player loading, 99%. And then they flashed this up, which is, well, if this is prod reverse, isn't it? P-R-O-D in reverse. So like, it's not going to be prod. We're pretty sure it's going to be Boostio. Boostio was even in the replies here as well, and he was like, dropping the question mark as this kind of went through, thinking, oh no way, like you guys aren't getting me anymore. So like, player 99% loading, 100% loading. So we think it's going to be Boostio. The funny thing was as well, when Boostio replied, everyone else dropped a question mark as well. Like Bag, Asuna, Mike's, Cryo, like, you know, everyone replied, and I think Boostio's maybe his point was, why haven't you guys, you know, announced me yet? What's going on? So it might just be because we think that Evil Geniuses have Boostio under a contract for a little bit longer, maybe until the early part of January. So I guess 100T can't officially announce a player that hasn't actually been released in their previous contract yet. But I guess we don't really know on that one until everything is officially locked in and confirmed. And, you know, even Ethan, who was in the replies, making it rather clear what we think is going to be the case. But very much interested to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.